Hi, I'm just sharing this report here, which is sharing information about the investigation into Ted Heath and with, is it Mr. Veal? Mike Veal, Chief Superintendent of Wiltshire Police, who is running Operation Conifer, has reportedly said that he was 120% certain Mr. Heath was guilty, and that is of abusing children, young boys, from a Jersey children's home who were procured by Jimmy Savile and then taken on to Edward Heath's yacht that would park more just off the Jersey coast. These two people, Linda Corby and her husband, they counted 11 boys getting on Edward Heath's yacht, and they'd agreed to meet up when the boys were coming back, and only 10 children leave the boat. They don't know what happened to the other child. Everybody on the island was saying that nasty things were going on the boat. In those days, the state and police wouldn't touch these people. Well, nothing's changed, has it? Ralph Vibert wanted to know where the other child had gone. He took me along to the police station as we had counted heads on and off the boat together. Lindsay says they visited Jersey Police headquarters together to make their statements, but the police weren't interested. In the 70s, people were scared and corruption was rife. About 2 or 3 days later, I ran into the officer as we ran a 24 hours recovery service at the time. I asked the police officer what had happened, and his exact words were, "I have been told from above that I was not allowed to investigate it," and Ralph Vibert said he was told the same thing. So, basically, this was who was governing Britain in the 1970s. A man who hung around with a depraved DJ who also liked to prey on children, a necrophiliac, and even though the class divides are so great, but one thing unites them, doesn't it? The pleasure that they derive in abusing children sexually. And according to Michael Shrimpton QC, apparently some of the boys were murdered and thrown overboard, and obviously that's what they suspect has happened to the missing child. So and it makes you think, doesn't it? You know, there he was up there, and man of honour, guest of honour, everybody deferring to him. Oh, Prime Minister Edward Heath. And, you know, he was so posh, wasn't he? And, you know, not like one of us low-lifes workers. Of course, Jimmy Savile, he was welcoming, wasn't he? They both liked, probably shared a cigar or two together, among other things. So if he was in Britain as Prime Minister in the 1970s and he got away with it, who else did he invite in? One wonders. Why was he in power? Who chose him? Was he chosen because it was known he was a paedophile and therefore he could be a Mr. Yes Man to people who wanted to undermine Britain and destroy our society and our system, our financial system of that time? Well, you know, here we are. Theresa May, this is today, isn't it? 2018. She's accused of ignoring 3 warnings that party whips used information about sexual abuse to demand loyalty from MPs. This lady's asking questions. Theresa May appeared shaken and said she would look back to the questions the Wigan MP had raised with her as Home Secretary. She insisted it is not appropriate for whip officers to deal with criminal sexual abuse allegations. They should go to the police. As Nandi shook her head, the Prime Minister seemed flustered as she vowed again to look at the Times. The Labour MP had raised this issue with her and continued. But I am very clear that we will take action against those where there are allegations which we see and there is evidence that there has been misconduct. This is just a skin, isn't it, over the we've just peeled a slight layer of the surface veneer off, haven't we? The veneer is starting to crack. The rot is starting to seep through. What they've been covering up, what she has been covering up, what Cameron has been covering up, what the whole of the British establishment has been covering up for decades is despicable, and it has got worse. The rot has got worse. In fact, unimaginably worse. We're talking about torture of children. We're talking about things that really the average person could not even imagine. We're talking about thousands of children being trafficked into London every year. We're talking about tens of thousands of children going missing in Britain every year. A very large portion from care homes in London. Children are vanishing. Trafficked children, they get taken into care. They vanish at an alarming rate. I will leave you the link underneath this video. I mean, at the end of the day, who can trace a trafficked child? They weren't born in this country, many of them. They've been taken into care. Oh, they vanished. Where'd they gone? Oh, I don't know. They ran away. They probably ran back to their traffickers. But then, how do 200 babies, on average, a year, babies under the age of 1, and I'll leave you the study, I'll leave you the link, check it. How do they go missing a year from social services, books and records? How do they vanish? Where do they vanish to? How can a child under the age of 1 that's in care in Britain vanish? What kind of people do those babies under the age of 1 end up with? Because certainly they can't be legitimate, can they? They're not officially the babies aren't going to officially recognised adoptive parents, are they? Where are they going? Nobody's asking any questions because nobody notices the 200 babies that get taken into social services care every year, do we? And when an official report comes along and uncovers it, well, we'll all ignore it because we've got far more important things to think about. But everything is relative. And if you don't think about the little things in life, the big things in life are going to get more and more and more problematic, because it's those little details that need our full attention if we would like to have a clear, honest picture of life. And it's when we see the full, true picture that then we can think about whether or not we're happy with that and how we might like to change it. Like, for example, we might decide actually it's a picture of horror and we need to start something completely different. Perhaps addressing the things that cause the horror. Why is British culture producing an unusually high number of sex offenders? Alright, you can talk about the Muslim paedophiles and how a misinterpretation actually of Islam is encouraging child abuse there as part of an endemic feature of their culture. But I'm sorry, in actual fact they are a minority compared to the amount of British men of every class, every faith, white people abusing children, British native people. Why are they abusing children? Sexually abusing children. Why are so many males in Britain desiring to sexually hurt children? Why? What is it about our culture that is making them do that? Because a baby is not born a paedophile. Something is happening within the growing child psychology that is causing this psychosexual disease. I understand it. I've had to. I'm a survivor. The only way that I've survived without just being consumed by hatred is by trying to understand. By learning, by research, by understanding what it is exactly I'm dealing with. I understand the psychosexual disease. I understand a lot of it is caused through grief. Some of it is caused through abuse and neglect against a child. And I say some because very commonly people who've been abused as a child are actually the opposite of abusive people in adult life. That is for the majority. Understand that, because according to present day tenets being bandied around all over the place, anybody who's been abused as a child is automatically going to be a child abuser as an adult. That is not the case. I've been abused as a child. I haven't been a child abuser. Instead, I've tried to address it and ask questions about why nothing's being done. Exactly why this lady's asking questions. Exactly why this couple were asking questions. Because, you know, we're living in a crazy, crazy, crazy world. in which everybody just wants... Apparently, it's all about sex, isn't it? Sex, 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 sex. Where are you going to get sex from? Oh, what pleasure, what sexual pleasure can I have? How much fun can I get out of this dick that I own? But let's not forget, there's plenty of female abusers out there as well. There's plenty of people who are actually selling their children in order to pay the mortgage. Does that sound unthinkable? Well, where do you think these photographs come from? Who do you think provides the British children in the photographs? Things happen here and people turn blind eyes to it. There's something sick at the core of our society. It's in government, it's in Westminster, it's in intelligence, it's in our police force, it's in our society, it's in our communities, it's in our schools, it's in our colleges, in our universities, in amongst every profession and authority. It's in our councils. It's everywhere. Why? And what are we going to do about it? Because this corruption, this evil against children, it's undermining our humanity. It's undermining our whole society. It's creating a culture of addiction and abuse and ignorance and actually sadism. It's creating an unloving society, a scornful, degraded, mocking, objectional society. Judge, 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 judge. Always judge the victim survivors. Persecute them. Stamp on them. Never judge the abusers, the criminals. Give them every grace. Give them every doubt. Because supporters of Edward Heath are still saying, oh no, it's all hearsay. You know, he's got absolutely nothing. Mr. Veal, Constable Veal, he's acting like judge and jury. He's acting like judge and jury. And he's already convicted Mr. Heath, said the Tory leader's godson. Well, we had quite a bit of evidence about Savile. He was dead and buried, wasn't he, by the time it all came out? Do we think that he was innocent as well? Do we think that, you know, our society's acted judge and jury against Jimmy Savile when he's dead and he can't defend himself? And Tory peer Lord Armstrong and of Ilminster and Lord Butler of Brockwell, who worked in Heath's government, are already calling for an independent judicial review into Operation Conifer. And, you know, that was Operation Conifer that Mike Beale, Chief Superintendent of Wiltshire, was running. So now they want an investigation into the operation that has exposed such evidence that a Chief Superintendent of Wiltshire Police is saying it's 120% certain that Mr. Heath was guilty. But they can't accept that. They want a judicial review into it. You see. Two lords, Lord Armstrong and and Lord Butler. They want an independent, they want a judicial review into this Operation Conifer. Well, where's our independent judicial review into this whole system that has been persecuting people like me, victim survivors, that has been trying to shut us up from asking questions about why this country still cannot provide child protection directives, and why still London police in particular are failing to investigate children's crime reports. And it isn't vengeance that we need, is it? What we need are child protection directives. Check them out. I'll leave them under this. I've shared them numerous times. EU child protection directives. Check them out. They are designed specifically to protect children and prevent crimes against them. And every paedophile in Britain is terrified of them. That's the fact. That's why they've not been implemented. That's why they keep covering it all up. Because if people saw the true extent and nature of the problem, then people would be demanding things like child protection directives, and then this psychosexual disease would not be able to spread. Then we might become the kind of society that as adults and parents we would turn around and ask our legal establishment, what the bloody hell do you think you are doing? Slapping the label minor onto our children. Minor? What? You are legally defining our children as unimportant, insignificant human beings? You think that you can operate in a society that does not need to take them into account, first and foremost, as the future of our country? You do not need to take them into account. What impacts your economic policy will have, what impacts your law will have. You think that by slapping the label minor onto our children that you can impose austerity, and anybody who raises questions about, well, how will that affect the children, you can say, well, that's just a minor concern. That you can commit crimes against our children, and even tell us that those crimes against children are equally a minor concern. And if our children give a crime report to the police against somebody like Mr. Saville or Edward Heath, it's a minor crime report. It's unimportant and insignificant. So basically then, our whole country is there. It's easy pickings for every paedophile. They can work in gangs and groups. They can be at the highest echelons and get together and do what they like. They can grab our children and nobody's going to do anything about it. They're going to get away with it because that's the status quo. That's the price of peace. That every year we feed a few thousand children to the monsters, the dragons in the hills. Because as long as they're happy with as many children as they can have, they're not going to be attacking us, are they? Except they are. They're attacking the British workforce every which way imaginable. And the British workforce are very stressed, very depressed, easily manipulated. Society's going to break down. People start to go crazy. Children start getting neglected, abused in other ways than sexual ways by stressed out parents. and it's another generation born in utter misery, easily manipulated, a large portion of them to fall down the holes of addiction and hopelessness. It's a bleak picture, isn't it? And what's so sad about it is that really it doesn't need to be that bleak. All it takes is for good people to stand up and do something, to support and demand child protection directives. It's no good going around, oh look what happened to this child, look what this man, look at this paedophile, look at that one, oh look, Asians, white people, counsellors, oh look, MPs abusing children. We've had all the stories, haven't we? Do we need any more? Isn't it time we did something? Are we just going to stand there looking at the road with crash after crash, road death after road death, and before somebody says, oh I know, what about having things like traffic lights and a zebra crossing? Well, that's what child protection directives are the equivalent of. Traffic lights and a zebra crossing. It's not going to stop the abusers. There's a lot of them out there. It's going to take a while before we eradicate this psychosexual disease. But we have to start somewhere, don't we? Just as pelican crossings are not going to stop people from being knocked down by cars, are they? Or stop accidents on the road. But they certainly do cut them right down, don't they? They encourage careful driving, don't they? And that's what we need to do. But you see, our children haven't got any zebra crossings, have they? When it comes to protecting them against especially your high profile paedophiles. Because apparently he is a beneficiary of Luciferian law, defined by Alistair Crowley in his book of the law, which might equals right to do as thy will is the whole of the law. And so he lived very nicely on it, didn't he? Might equals right to do as thy will. He was born with a plum in his mouth and a silver spoon, and it's like, yeah, you're big and powerful, you can do whatever you like. And anybody who gets big and powerful, in whatever capacity, like Jimmy Savile say, as long as he's pally with people like you and helping you, yeah, he can have might to do whatever he likes. Luciferian law. That's the fact of it. And people might laugh and say, oh, don't be daft. Well, that's it. Tell me that isn't what he was benefiting from. Tell me that's not what was protecting him. People who serve Luciferian law. People who respect the idea that somebody can be so big and powerful they can't be prosecuted. They're above the law. That's Luciferian law. Face it. Face facts, Britain. So, do we want to be governed by people who follow an insane, actually criminal law, or not? Are we going to stand up for our children's rights, or not? Are we going to remove the label minor off our children, or not? Are we going to establish child protection directives, or not? These are the questions that myself, as a survivor, would like answered. I would like the British public to answer these questions by campaigning removal of the legal definition minor from our children. Establish child protection directives as designed and defined by the EU and the UN by people who have thoroughly studied the whole issue of child sexual abuse and thoroughly understand the problem, to the extent they've been able to provide a set of directives in order to protect children and prevent crimes against them. So, you know, that does mean taking children's crime reports seriously. It does mean thoroughly investigating every single report of crimes against children, regardless of who it's from or how outlandish their story seems. That's what it means. It means giving the same attention towards protecting our children as police presently give to seizing stashes of drugs. That's what we need to do. And if we're not going to do it, don't talk to me about anything. Don't talk to me about a charity. Oh, we're setting this charity up for children to phone in abused children, you know, who are too scared to speak. We're going to set a helpline up for them. Sorry, go away. How do I know that that helpline won't end up identifying very vulnerable children who'll then be handed over to who? I don't trust none of you. I don't trust anybody when it comes down to our children. I don't trust a charity. No, we need professional people. We need child protection directives that investigate promptly crimes against children, that protect children. We need multiple bodies overseeing to make sure that children in care, in particular, are safe. And every child in care needs a truly independent legal guardian. Every child reporting crimes to the police, as the child protection directives advocate, needs a legally independent legal guardian to make sure that they're safe and that their rights are followed and upheld. That's what they need. Not an independent legal guardian associated with the authority where the child is living. An independent legal guardian affiliated with a national body, a facet of government, and that itself is overseen by at least 2 other trusted independent bodies. Because you can't trust anybody when it comes to child safety. And if we establish the if we establish the child protection directives, if we remove this label, minor, off our children, it may be that in the future we will have less and less and less and less people to be suspicious about. If we start developing a healthier society that raises children with the kind of education system that raises human beings instead of robots, we might start getting somewhere. But at the moment, the crimes are running rife. And yes, the majority of people are not child sexual abusers. The very idea abhors them. That's the fact of it. You know, non-child abusers outnumber child sexual abusers by probably 20, if not 30 to 1. But those ones do get together. They do infect others. They do amount to over 1 million sexual abusers in Britain. Possibly more. That's a serious amount of abusers. They do get together, they do communicate, they know no social divides, you see. All the divides are there for the good people, aren't they? The non-criminals, to keep us all apart, because, you know, we can hate each other because one of us is white and the other's black, or one's a Muslim and one's a Christian, or we don't like Jews, or oh, we don't like poor people, or oh, we don't like rich people, or we don't like people who support this football club. You know, where does it end? The divisions, the reasons for hate. And all those reasons for hate are a distraction, because this is what is going on behind the scenes, where they don't want you to look. And there's the financial crimes. You know, expect the worst. Expect every type of crime to emit from a person who will derive pleasure from a child's pain. Expect the very worst. Well, we're facing it now, aren't we? As a nation, understand what it is, where the corruption really truly is arising from the very core of what's governing us. And so it is, everybody was disgusted about, oh, Jimmy Savile used to really like him and he did all this stuff for charity. People like myself never liked him. I always thought the guy was dodgy. But there again, I'm a survivor. I've got experience of men like him. I can see him a mile away. Him, I was too young really to notice. And by the time I'd grown up, he was a doddery old man, so, you know. But it's something for Britain to think about, and that's why I've made this video, because I think Britain does need to think very, very carefully to know that we have been governed by a man such as him. That he actually was Prime Minister of our country. And we do need to think very, very carefully about what kind of consciousness has been seeping into power every decade, with people like Thatcher covering it up, and David Cameron covering it up, and even Theresa May covering it up. Cover up, cover up, cover up, cover up. And in they flow. And how bad is it right now, then? We need to wake up to it. And we need to do something about it. Because, you know, a lynch mob isn't going to solve the problem. Child protection directives, removal of the legal definition of minor against our children. Thank you.